It's the SWP Disciple. You know where I'm at. Forest Park on a Sunday evening, early evening. It's beautiful out here, as you'd expect. No baseball game this time. A bit fewer people than before, but still nice. You know, people working out here on the bars or whatever. Other people walking their dog, etc., etc. Homie from the gym, he stayed walking like I do. I love a good walk. It's so zen. But homie here in the orange shirt, he's at the gym like in the late at night, pretty much like the 8 to 10 crew, like I am. But I guess he's getting it in extra. Yo, what up? But yeah, so bit of tough news before I get into my whatever yarn I'm about to elucidate on in just a moment. So law school, grades came out like a week and a half ago or so. So I missed the cut after 1L by 0.04 eek. So literally 400ths of a point. You need a 2.3 to make the cut. I got a 2.26. So I'm on dismissal, but it's not like a death penalty. You can come back hopefully in a year or two. The letter that they send you is very amorphous intentionally. There's no rubric, there's no moratorium, so there's no like defined period that you have to be out. It could be as short as like a semester, but then like until like you're readmitted. But then the thing is, I think the rolling admission is year by year, so it's not like I can start in January even if I were told that I'm back. So in all likelihood, I'll probably have to take a year off. Now here's the part where it gets dicey. Your best course of action, and the ABA, American Bar Association, they structure it in such a way that you can't really escape unless you're exceptional and you have like really strong letters of recommendation and they just see something in you, but like how can they? So I'm trying to transfer to Franklin Pierce. I got a pretty strong letter of recommendation from my tort professor. Which little did I know that B that I got in that class last fall would be the high water mark for my classes. But I could tell that she liked me and she was very enthusiastic. Like she used to sit on the board actually. To my chagrin, she wasn't on my review panel for this, for my appeal hearing, which was, denied like a week or so ago. But she kind of told me the most logical course of action. She kind of said a year or two, a bit too much for me. So my guess is that's what she usually sees. Oddly, I had friends, because the way it works, it's a panel of 6. So one is like the dean of admissions. The other is a gentleman. He postures as very like important, but from what I understand, he's like just a professor. But he postured like he was like the lead on the whole thing. We'll just call him Dean S. So he's kind of like agnostic. Like I don't know him, he doesn't know me. The other dean, we kind of have a relationship. I get the feeling that she does not like me too much. Not in the sense of like I did anything, but more like, yeah, you're not really law school material type. And then there's like the other dean of like academic improvement I'm familiar with. We'll call him Dean D. He likes me. He was nodding very approvingly on my points and like my appeal and blah blah blah. Still the same outcome though. And then there were like 2 professors who were like disinterested, not uninterested, but disinterested. So they're not like related to the situation, but they looked very young. And then one, I think, was the president of like the student body, BDSA board. But because the other 2 professors were so young, I couldn't really tell of the 3, the 2 plus 1, who was who. And I didn't have the presence of mind, as you might imagine. There's a lot going on, and I forgot to record it. Now they recorded. I remember the Zoom meeting was recorded, but I forgot to set my camera up to record it because, obviously a lot going through my head. I regret that because I'm usually pretty good about remembering things like that. But anyway, made my appeal. I had a very good medical reason. I've suffered migraines for like 20 years, had a whole action plan to work up for my doctor, blah, 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 blah. And then I figured between that and being only 0.04 off, it would be cool. So you're probably wondering like, likely story. But I, spoke with a couple people who were one who's like a friend of mine who was like the student body president like last year, and sat in on a bunch of these, and both of them were like, yeah, you should be fine. I sat in on like 4 of them last semester, or I guess it would have been last semester at the time, fall last year. And she said like 3 of the 4 made it through, and they were off by way more, by like a full like 2/10 of a point or whatever. So I really don't know what happened. I think it's just one of those things where they either like you or they don't. So like, it is what it is. You're probably reading my voice and you're like, wow, you don't sound as sad as you should be. Well, I'm not really someone who's given to despair, and that I don't quit. So if it's got to be here, it's got to be here. I applied at Franklin Pierce, which is actually ranked slightly higher than Western New England. I've already kind of talked with admissions. They said it'll be tough given my situation, because the way that it works, it used to be up until 2014 that if you were dismissed from anywhere, you had to sit out 2 years mandatory. They relaxed those, because I thought it was going to be 2 years, and then when I spoke to a bunch of different schools, like there's so many that I've spoken with. I've only applied one place, but I've probably spoken with, I don't know, maybe like 7 or 8 schools. And some kept the standard, some reduced it to 1, and then others, they'll let you write in, provided like your LSAT meets the standard. They see something in you where you like add value to the school, etc., etc. So it's the waiting game. A lot of the deadlines are coming up on the 15th. I already applied last week to Franklin Pierce, like University of New Hampshire. There's like maybe a couple others I have in mind. The situation just kind of squeezes you, because like I said, some schools, like for instance, like Cleveland State, they have, if they're far away, they have to have an online component, because I wouldn't be able to get there and I'm not moving there. So that's one squeeze. The other is, do we wait a year, 2 year? That's another one. The other part is like, do I qualify on its face? Like, even if things were fine, like, does it require like a 165 LSAT to get in, right? So I wouldn't qualify there. For instance, like Northeastern University, things like in the 160s for the LSAT, so I wouldn't get in there. So all those, various like choke points really reduce you to just a couple places that you can, you meaning I can apply. So thus is the challenge. The one that I appeared to be, I wouldn't say a shoo-in, but based on, when I spoke to admissions, New England College of Law, problem with them is, even in 2025, they don't really have an online component to their classes, so you have to be there in person. And then the other part is, this isn't like one of those like long since, like, been around for like 100 years, established schools that has like its own campus. It's like downtown Boston, so you have to park like at the hotel. They have like an agreement with them, but I worked out the price. It's like an additional, like, call it like $500 a month to park. Not to mention, because there's no online component, I have to get up like early, hour and a half drive into Boston, assuming that there's no traffic. We maybe allow like an extra half hour just because of that, and then work from the library, run up to class at 6, and the classes are 6 to 10 Monday through Thursday. I mean, you'd just be wiped out. Like, I don't see how that's feasible, not to mention the cost. So again, it's gonna, when you check off all the boxes, it's gonna come down to maybe just a couple. When I say a couple, I mean like maybe like 3-4 schools or so, in terms of like, do you qualify if I were not in this little debacle? Do they have an online component? What would the other point be? Oh yeah, and then is there like a moratorium? Do you have to wait a year or 2, right? So those alone, and there really is only, in terms of like ABA approved schools, like 190 in the country. And obviously, once you peel back, UConn's like 50, is rated 50. So of the like 195, realistically, I'd say maybe like the top 80 or so I wouldn't qualify for anyway. So, and then, you apply the other 3 choke points, or other 2 choke points, and, then you're down to maybe like 5. So yeah, here we are, another hurdle to be cleared. I can talk about some observations in terms of like interpersonal relationships afterwards, but that's not even what this video is about. And I'll make this part quick because I'm already at almost 10 minutes. Meat and potatoes. You've often heard me use that term. You can probably figure out what it means by inference, even colloquially, or just by seat of your pants. So basically, if someone's like meat and potatoes, it's like, just the basics. They don't necessarily need like, pick anything, say music, right? They don't need a lot of like technicality. They don't necessarily care if it's like, if the beat's 4 on the floor, or if the bass line is whatever, or if the bass player is like is very technical and gifted, or if it's just put into a synthesizer, whatever. Some people just like an interesting beat. Lyrics, don't really pay attention. Something they can like shake their booty to, whatever. You can apply that to anything. You can apply it to partners. Some guys like very fancy women. They got to look a certain way. They have to have a certain pedigree. And then other guys are like, as long as it's a nice girl and she's not heinous, let's roll. You think of jobs. Some people can be, blue collar. Nothing wrong with that. Or even if it's like low level white collar, like just in an office, is like below middle management. Just a little cubicle, get their nominal 4% raise every year, and they can save their 15% and they're fine. Whereas other people, they need to be an attorney, or, a doctor, or, some kind of like a CFO or CEO or whatever. And in terms of like, the happiness matrix or quotient, in theory, they can all be very, very similar. Some people just don't need all that, as it were. So I stop and think about myself, right? So I have many opinions. I have one friend who's pretty close to me. I've known her for like 10 years, and she never approved of the law school thing because of why she suspects I'm in law school. We don't need to get into all that. And she's like, why don't you just, if you need extra money, I mean, you have a fine job, you probably should make a little more, but why don't you just like, DoorDash? Or why don't you, I guess get into Forex or whatever she said. Like, there's so many side hustles where you can make an extra 30, 40 grand and you'd be fine. You don't need to go back to school, blah, blah, blah. So it makes me think of two people that are close to me. Now, I give it to you from two angles, both professionally and in terms of relationships, because for me, the law school really ties into both. And you probably suspect why. So I'll go with a close friend of mine in Georgia. He used to live up here. I've known him. He's one of my very first friends I made coming into Springfield in '92. He had just moved up here from, I'll just say, the island. And, super cool cat, real chill. It's funny when I stop and think about things, like we've never really spoken about politics. I don't think we've ever had like a super deep conversation on anything topical that like really matters. Yeah, and still, he's one of my my very best friends. He's actually my cousin's like best friend, if you're gonna put a label on it. But tangentially, we've all known each other the same amount of time. And I'll go down to Georgia and visit him. He comes up here with his family, and then we'll cut out and have some family time. He's like a cousin to me, or a brother. So anyway, long ago, because his cousin, who's kind of like his sister, older sister, it was an attorney. Same school I went to, by the way, or am going to, or whatever you want to call it. And then he tried his hand at it, I'm sure at her urging. I don't know all the logistics, but the basics of it, I guess he didn't do so great on the LSAT. No shame in that. And then pretty quickly, I don't know if he took it a second time. It doesn't feel like it. I never asked him, because this was like a while ago. This was probably like 2009, 2010 or something like that, before he moved down south. And just kind of cut the cord, and then basically just leaned into his job at, I won't say where, let's just say it's at a big box store, probably everyone's favorite big box store, and worked his way up. At this point, I think he's probably been there, I want to say like 2003, so 22 years or so. My cousin's been there, I think, since 2004, and I think he was there before. So yeah, let's just say 20 plus years. And he basically has like his own store down there. He's like either a manager or assistant manager, but the way their pay structure is, like he's told me, they make quite a bit of money, like well into six figures what he does. And he's told me privately, like, he's not crazy about the job, but it gets the job done. He gets his happiness, like, from his cars, his McMansion house. Obviously down there you get a lot more house than you do up here. And he bought it like brand new. It's got to be worth like 700 something by now. He's been down there for like 10 years or more. Has his two lovely boys, his wife, lovely family, and he's great. He's happy. we obviously we don't talk as much as we used to. I shouldn't say obviously. If I called, we would, but I hate talking on the phone. So I'll text, and he's not a big texter. So thus, it kind of, choke point is the word of the day, right? So it kind of like puts a ceiling on our contact, though. We've known each other for 33 years, right? We're not going anywhere. Though, so I thought with my best friend, which you already know, kind of like that subplot or whatever. So I guess I should never take for granted relationships and like cultivating them or whatever. Not that that's what happened in the other situation, but that, just came to my mind. So maybe I should just give him a call one of these days. And we do talk every now and again, but it's mostly text, and he'll respond like later in the day or the next day or whatever. And he's just not a big texter, so the conversation isn't as robust as it could be, but he's still a little brother. And yeah, he was always just a meat and potatoes guy. Like, that makes him happy. That would make a lot of people happy. I'm not even saying that it wouldn't make me happy. I like to think that I was always like a attorney, engineer, doctor type. I've just been like, what's limited me is my inherent laziness, which kind of plays into law school. I mean, obviously I tried. You can't not try and end up with basically making the making the score, but just kind of like by a technicality missing it. So I definitely tried, but you can always, in any failure, you can always place things at the feet of, I could have worked a bit harder. So the next go around, I have some techniques, and then my doctor prescribed a medication as a prophylactic, actually, that prevents headaches and reduces the intensity of them. Because I think I've mentioned it before in the past several times, some headaches and vertigo, but it's like it becomes a part of you. So I've dealt with them for like 20 years. So it's like I don't really talk about it much. I hardly even notice them unless it's a really bad one, because I've just been dealing with them for so long. But anyway, rules are rules. I will figure it out. So then the other part is probably more importantly, right? Because like the biggest decision you can make is the person you're with. So someone else who's very close to me, I won't say who, obviously. I remember some years ago, as he was approaching getting married, and like, you're close to someone, you can kind of overstep a little bit or ask certain questions, like very serious questions. And I was like, they were engaged at this point. It was a fait accompli. They're going to get married. But I asked him, do you love her? Because like, you can feel a certain thing, like you can tell that it's like, I know how I am, right? So I'm like a very like emotional guy, and actually, which has worked against me in a lot of ways, where I can't really put full effort into things unless I'm just all in. I've always admired people who can ace the proverbial difficult yet uninteresting class. I just never had that ability, and you can imagine how frustrating that is, especially when like I have the aptitude. I know I can do it, but it's just I'm just so unmotivated because I really just don't like being here doing whatever it is that I can't put my full effort in or whatever. And that's kind of been something I've battled my whole life. But yeah, I asked him that, and then he gave me the answer like, and I won't get into the rest of it, but when somebody says, it's like it's cope in a certain way or whatever, and they're great now, great family, etc., etc. I'm sure if it wasn't fully there before, it's there now, that they love each other, etc., etc. And it's a great relationship or whatever. But I can tell it was like one of those things where they just kind of ground into it. And there's other subtext, but I won't get into all of their business as to like leading up the dating the 2 years before, which led to me even asking the question in the first place, because I kind of knew, right? Like you just know when it's like a windswept, lovelorn relationship, and when it's like this is meat and potatoes. You're good for me, I'm good for you. Let's do this. So the scary part is that because of my age, in 2 months I'll be 46. Am I going to be meat and potatoes whether I want to or not? That's entirely on the table. You're probably wondering, like, all right, so why are you going to bother with law school when you won't be done until you're like, it would have been.
I can't tell my dad.
It would have been late anyway. I would have been like approaching 48. Now I'm going to be like 50 by the time I'm done. So, even if I work until I'm 70, I probably won't make the money. I probably won't make the money back anyway. So now it's for other reasons. And I'll get into those other reasons another time, and I really will. I know that's like a running joke here. You say you leave things on cliffhangers and then you never come back to them. I will. But yeah, so you know the old saying, there's more than one way to skin a cat, which is an awful saying. You know, don't tell PETA. But there really is. I guess there's more than one way to happiness. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, I was earmarked, you know, to be like a cardiothoracic surgeon since like the age of 14. And I just kind of went ahead, got my fancy wife, my gifted kids, you know, tall, good-looking, sturdy kids, you know, my McMansion and all that or whatever. Sometimes it's a bit off that beaten path and you can still be happy. I guess that's a lesson I still got to learn because that's so not me, but it may be foisted upon me regardless. So anyway, little food for thought. For the record, I'm still not a meat and potatoes guy. I definitely am like a live by my dreams type of guy. Isn't that part of what the red pill complains about with women? I mean, maybe that's why I'm not red pill. But anyway, it's a beautiful day wherever you are. Health is wealth. Enjoy the day. The Lord is faithful. Stay with me. God bless.